That little sound from the baby monitor. It's 4, maybe 5 in the morning, and your heart just sinks. You think, here we go again. Believe it or not, early morning wakes aren't something you just have to live with. It is not your baby's personality or a fixed trait. It's simply the current pattern that they are in. I'm Sarah. I'm not a doctor. I'm a mom on a mission. A mission to read all the parenting books and studies so you don't have to. And I promise, by the end of this video, you will have simple, actionable things you can do to change that pattern and finally get your mornings back. But before we get to those actionable steps, we need to understand the why. Why does it feel so impossible to get them back to sleep at 4 or 5 in the morning, even when you know they're still tired? It's not your imagination. There are actually 3 biological traps working against you at that hour. First, after sleeping for a solid 8, 9, maybe even 10 hours, your baby's sleep pressure is incredibly low. Think of it like a pressure tank that's been building all day and then slowly releasing all night. By 4 a.m., there's just not much pressure left to keep them deeply asleep. Second, their body's natural sleepy hormone, melatonin, is at its lowest point. As their system starts to anticipate morning, that hormone level begins to drop off, making it physically harder to fall back into and maintain a deep sleep. And third, their sleep cycle itself is just different in the early morning. All night, sleep moves in waves, from deep to light. But in those final hours, they spend much more time in that very light, easily disturbed stage of sleep. So you have low sleep pressure, dropping melatonin, and light sleep all hitting at once. It's a biological perfect storm. It's no wonder it feels like a battle. But now that we understand what we're up against, we can start to outsmart it. So how do we start outsmarting that biological perfect storm? We begin with the 2 most common and honestly most fixable mistakes I see parents make. These are the foundations of sleep, and if we don't get them right, nothing else we try will stick. Mistake number 1 is running on a sleep schedule that isn't right for your baby's age. This is so important. I want you to think of it like a sleep budget. Every single baby has a total amount of sleep they need in a 24-hour period. If they spend too much of that budget on daytime naps, they simply won't have enough sleep currency left for the night. Their body will literally run out of the need for sleep. Let's take that 11-month-old from the study. They typically need about 13 hours of total sleep. If that baby takes 2 long naps that add up to 4 hours during the day, just do the math with me. They only have 9 hours of sleep left for the entire night. So if you put them to bed at 7 p.m., a 4 a.m. wake-up isn't a fluke. It's practically guaranteed. Their body is simply done sleeping. This pattern changes as they grow. For a baby between 7 and 10 months, they're likely on 2 solid naps a day. Their wake windows, the time they can comfortably stay awake between sleeps, are getting longer, maybe 3 to 4 hours. A common trap here is letting that afternoon nap go too late. If their last nap ends at 5 p.m., their body just won't have built up enough sleep pressure for a 7 p.m. bedtime. You'll struggle to get them down, and that low sleep pressure will hit them extra hard in the early morning because their sleep tank wasn't truly full at bedtime. And if you have a younger baby, say between 4 and 6 months old, it's even more delicate. They're usually taking 3 or 4 naps a day, and their wake windows are much shorter, maybe just 2 to 2.5 hours. The mistake here is often pushing them too long, thinking it will make them sleepier. It backfires. They become overtired. Their body floods with cortisol, a stress hormone, which acts like a shot of adrenaline. That makes it harder to fall asleep and harder to stay asleep. The result? You guessed it, a jarring wake-up at 4:30 in the morning. Getting that schedule right is your first line of defense. But it works hand in hand with mistake number 2, an environment that is accidentally sabotaging your sleep efforts. First, let's talk about light, or rather, the total lack of it. Your baby's room needs to be pitch black. I mean, cave dark, middle of the night dark. This isn't a preference, it's pure biology. Even a tiny sliver of light from under the door or through the blinds can hit their eyelids in that light sleep phase and signal to their brain, hey, time to start the day. It prematurely kicks their circadian rhythm into gear. Here's the simple test I tell every parent. In the middle of the day, close the blinds, turn off the lights, and hold your hand up about a foot in front of your face. If you can clearly see your hand, it is not dark enough. You need to cover every single crack of light. Use blackout blinds, but also put electrical tape over the little lights on the baby monitor, the humidifier, the sound machine. Every photon counts. Next up is noise. The world is loud, especially between 4 and 6 a.m. You've got birds chirping, the garbage truck beeping, your partner's alarm going off down the hall. For a baby in light sleep, these sounds are like a megaphone right next to their ear. This is where a white noise machine becomes your most valuable tool. But here's something most people get wrong. Its job isn't to make the room silent. Its job is to create a consistent, boring wall of sound that masks those sudden, sharp noises that would otherwise jolt your baby awake. It's the difference between a smooth car ride and hitting an unexpected pothole. And on that note, a really important point on safety. As a mom who has spent hours reading the studies on this, please hear me. Some research has shown that if a white noise machine is too loud and too close, it can be harmful to a baby's developing hearing. The current safety guideline is to keep the machine at least 6.5 feet or 200 centimeters away from your baby's crib, and to keep the volume no louder than a soft shower you'd hear from the next room. We have to protect those little ears. Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. We've covered schedules and the perfect sleep cave. Before we move on to the final and most powerful piece of the puzzle, I'm really curious. Which of these have you struggled with the most? The crazy, ever-changing nap schedule, or trying to turn your baby's room into a black hole? Let me know down in the comments. I read all of them, and it really helps me to know what you're all going through, because getting the schedule and the room right are the essential first steps. But what happens when you've done all that? You have the perfect schedule, the room is a void of light and sound, and your baby still wakes up at 5 a.m. crying for you to come in. That's when we have to talk about the single biggest factor of all. And this right here is where so many dedicated parents feel like giving up. You've become a master scheduler, a human clock. Your baby's room is darker than a cave on a moonless night. You have followed all the rules, and yet, there you are, standing in the pre-dawn quiet with that familiar feeling in your gut, asking yourself, what am I missing? What is the one piece I have overlooked? The answer to that question can be the hardest one for us to face as parents, but I promise you, it's also the one that holds the key to setting you free. Because the real reason your baby can't get back to sleep at 5 a.m. often has less to do with the schedule or the room and everything to do with what happens the moment their eyes first close at bedtime. And that right there is the key, the sleep association, the way your baby learns to transition from being awake to being asleep. Because if your baby needs you to fall asleep at 7 p.m., they will need you to fall back asleep at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., and yes, at 5 a.m. But before we unpack that, let's talk about the other huge mistake that locks this pattern in place. Mistake number 3, starting the day too early and creating a vicious cycle. I want you to picture this. It's 4:30 a.m. You hear a cry from the monitor. You stumble into your 9-month-old's room, your body aching for just one more hour of sleep. You try everything, but they are wide awake. So you give in. You sigh, turn on the lights, and say, okay, I guess we're starting the day. You have just unintentionally told your baby's internal clock, this is morning. 4:30 a.m. is our new wake-up time. Now watch how this spirals. Because your baby was up so early, they're exhausted by 8 a.m. They take a long, desperate nap. Then they're tired again in the early afternoon, so they take another one. You're just trying to get through the day, but by the time evening rolls around, they are completely overtired and melting down by 5 p.m. You can't possibly keep them up until their normal bedtime. So you put them to bed 2 hours early. And what happens when you put a baby to bed at 5 p.m.? Their little body gets a nice long chunk of sleep. And then it's 4 a.m. and they are rested, ready to go. And the cycle starts all over again. You are literally trapping yourself in a pattern of early mornings simply by confirming to your baby that 4 a.m. is, in fact, morning. We have to hold the line. Keep it dark and boring until your desired wake time. That is non-negotiable. But this brings us to the final, most important piece of the entire puzzle. The one thing that, once you solve it, changes everything. It's helping your baby learn to fall asleep independently. I know, for some of you, hearing that phrase makes your shoulders tense up. The internet is a scary place, filled with judgment about this topic. But please, hear me out. This isn't about a specific, rigid method. It's about a skill. Just like learning to eat solid food or learning to walk, learning to self-soothe and initiate sleep is a fundamental skill. And I want to be clear, there is a whole spectrum of ways to teach this. There are very gentle, gradual methods where you sit by the crib and slowly move away over many nights. There are methods with timed checks to offer reassurance. My goal today isn't to sell you on one method, but to help you understand why this skill is the master key to ending early morning wakes. And I know as a mom, I truly know this can be the hardest step to take. It pulls on every one of your protective instincts. But I want to encourage you to reframe this. You are not taking your presence away from them. You're giving them an incredible, lifelong gift, the ability to get the restorative sleep their growing brains and bodies desperately need. It's an act of love. Here's why it works. Every human, babies and adults, wakes up multiple times a night as we transition between sleep cycles. You do it every night. You might roll over, adjust your pillow, and you're back to sleep without ever remembering it. Why? Because you know how to fall asleep on your own. Now, let's go back to your baby. Let's say your baby is rocked or fed completely to sleep at bedtime. They are put into their crib already unconscious. Then, at 1 a.m., they hit the end of a sleep cycle and enter a very light sleep. They stir, their brain has a moment of, whoa, wait a second, I was in mom's arms, feeling warm and hearing her heartbeat, and now I'm alone in my crib. This is not right, help! And they cry for you. At 1 a.m., sleep pressure is still super high. You go in, maybe give them a quick rock or their pacifier, and they're out again in minutes. Same thing happens at 3 a.m., a little harder this time, but doable. But then 5 a.m. hits. They stir, they have that same moment of panic. Hey, this isn't where I fell asleep. They call for you. But now, remember our biology lesson? Sleep pressure is at rock bottom. Melatonin is wearing off. Their body is already preparing for morning. You can go in and rock them, shush them, plead with them, but the drive to sleep is just not strong enough to overcome that one missing piece. They don't know how to do it themselves. It was never about hunger. It was never about being a bad sleeper. It was simply that in that moment of waking, when the biological odds were stacked against them, they didn't have the one tool they needed to drift back off. Learning to fall asleep independently isn't about nighttime. It's about giving them the tool they need for 5 a.m. And when you think about it that way, as just a tool, it changes everything, doesn't it? Remember what I said at the very beginning of all this. Early morning waking isn't your baby's preference. It's simply the current pattern that they are in. And that means you can stop fighting a battle you thought you were losing. Your baby isn't being difficult. They're just walking a path that's been unintentionally laid out for them. Your job isn't to be a guard, forcing a change. It's to be a guide, gently, lovingly, showing them a new path to a healthier rhythm. This is hard, heartfelt work. But know this, by doing it, you are giving your child the beautiful gift of rest, and that is an incredible thing. So let's bring it all together. What is your game plan for reclaiming your mornings? It truly boils down to 3 key steps. First, making sure their sleep schedule is perfectly tuned to their age and sleep needs. Second, turning that bedroom into a pitch-black, quiet cave. And third, the most important piece of the puzzle, gently guiding them towards the incredible skill of falling asleep all on their own. Now, once you've solved early mornings, you might find yourself facing the next boss battle, the notorious 30-minute nap. That's a completely different beast, which is why I made a whole video breaking down the 6 most common reasons for short naps. Make sure you watch that one next. I'll link it right here for you. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this video helped you, a simple like is so appreciated. And if you want to keep learning with me, be sure to subscribe. I'd even recommend saving this one. This journey can have its ups and downs, and you'll want to have this guide in your back pocket.